Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's midweek message. We are in Luke chapter 5. Not very many verses this week, 12 to 16, but we're going to talk about a lot of stuff that gives us some context. So in this section, Luke 5, 12 to 16, we're going to talk about leprosy, and someone's going to be healed of leprosy. So we're going to give you some context, especially Old Testament context, to understand the significance of what leprosy was to people at the time and what it represented. So in Leviticus, we get some information about leprosy. We get a ton of information about leprosy, how it should be handled, what you should do if you get this. A key part of it is the second you have leprosy, there is now separation. And you're going to wear these torn clothes. You're going to let your hair out. If anyone comes within 100 steps of you, do you know what you're supposed to do? Yell, "Unclean, unclean." You don't associate in cities. You're not allowed in city walls anymore. You go to a priest to make it official. You lose everything that you love. This is horrific. Absolutely horrific. And then let alone the actual disease and what it does and how it spreads and how it breaks you down and the neuropathy where you don't even feel pain anymore. So you wrap in these clothes so you know when something bad is happening to you. And you slowly break down it really attacks the cooler parts of your physical body. And so that's your extremities, and it eats it away to nothing. And then you die. It is horrible. It's absolutely awful. And it's a picture of sin. And so this Old Testament to New Testament, it's consistent. It's a picture of sin. It's a picture of separation and what sin does. Even the littlest, tiniest bit of sin is a complete and total separator from you and God. And so leprosy it's symbolic, but a dramatic picture of what sin does in all of our lives. And so imagine this, Old Testament, New Testament, you are a normal person, healthy person with a family, with a life. And then you feel something on a toe, and it's small. And you kind of, well, what is that? What is that thing? And then you check it out and you look at it, you try to hide it. And it gets a little bigger. And then you have that fear. Am I about to lose everything? No, this surely has to be something else. It can't be leprosy. And then everything is gone as it spreads, as you no longer can hide it. And you are now separated from everything. And I've researched leprosy, taught about leprosy many times. This is one of the first times I really get to talk about it or study it since I was sick. And so the sickness that I had, it caused me to be isolated. I saw maybe 10 people in general, 10 people in my life about. And I'm in isolation. And I know what it's like when I had all this stuff. I had it all and now it's gone. And there's no guarantee of it coming back. Well, a leper was even more extreme. And that was what the disease was, and it was simply awful. And so we're going to look at some Old Testament examples of what leprosy was, what it represented, and then it gives us a good context for then when Jesus comes into the picture. So we're going to spend some time looking at these verses. First, Numbers 12, and we'll read a decent chunk. We're going to start in verse 4. Numbers 12, verse 4. And suddenly... Oh, by the way, context here, they're arguing with Moses. Aaron and Miriam are saying, questioning Moses' authority. Big mistake here. And so in the middle of the argument, and suddenly the Lord said to Moses and to Aaron and Miriam, "Come out, you three, to the tent of meeting." This is like dad coming in and it's like, "You guys sit down right there on the couch." Like a kind of, they're in trouble. I always love that picture. And the Lord came down in a pillar of cloud and stood at the entrance of the tent and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forward. Imagine the absolute shame. You're hearing the voice of God and you're seeing the manifestation and just like, come forward. They know they're so. I know what it's like, being a little kid. I don't know what it's like when you're talking about God. Oh, unreal. Very few people have ever experienced this in humanity, being called out by God like this. An unreal experience here. And he said, "Hear my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him in a vision." That's how he works with prophets. "I speak with him in a dream." So the prophet sees this dream. "Not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak mouth to mouth clearly and not in riddles. And he beholds the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses?" See, Moses was unique. And I love that so much of our Old Testament information comes from Moses writing it down, because he was the perfect one to do it, because he had a relationship with God, a physical relationship with God, like no one else in history has. Moses was unique. Moses was special. There's no prophet that had a relationship with God like Moses. Moses was unique. And so if someone has that kind of relationship with God, that God has said in how he interacts, that this person is special, you better be careful what you say. And that's what the warning is here. Verse 9, "And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. When the cloud removed from over the tent, behold, Miriam was leprous, like snow. And Aaron turned toward Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said to Moses, O my Lord, do not punish us, because we have done foolishly and have sinned." So you see the connection here. They have done foolishly. They have sinned. A consequence of that sin is leprosy. That is this punishment. Let her not be as one dead. And that's what it would have been like. You would be as if you are dead until you actually die. This doesn't last a year or two. It can be decades. And as far as the family is considered, as far as other people are considered, like, you're dead. This is what Aaron is saying here. As one dead, whose flesh is half eaten away when he comes out of his mother's womb. And Moses cried out to the Lord, "O God, please heal her, please." But the Lord said to Moses, "If her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut outside the camp 7 days, and after that she may be brought in again." So she had this leprosy for 7 days. Because of what? Because of the sin. And so that's the picture, one of the Old Testament pictures. We're going to get to two more briefer examples. But in the Old Testament mind, if you had leprosy, someone did something. Even the disciples you give to the New Testament. Oh, well, who sinned that this person has this issue? Somebody sinned. That's why there's leprosy. And that was the view. And it was hard. It was heartbreaking, devastating. But it was just because somebody sinned. That's kind of the view. All right, let's get two more brief examples here. 2 Kings 5, we're just going to highlight a couple things. This is Naaman, his story. 2 Kings 5, verse 7. "And when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes." So this is a letter coming from Syria, saying, hey, essentially to the king of Israel, heal this guy. "And when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, Am I God, to kill and to make alive, that this man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Only consider and see how he is seeking quarrel with me." Because that's impossible. People aren't healed from leprosy. That's not what happens. They have the examples in Leviticus for what to do when you're healed, but no one's healed. That's not what they're used to. They have the priest there, and you're supposed to do this process and go to the priest when you are healed. But no one's seen that. That's not happened. It's written down, but there's no example in history of that ever occurring. And we can see God do the miracle. Miriam was obviously healed. Moses had it for a moment, and then that was healed. So we see that leprosy can be touched and healed, but as far as someone going to the priest and walking through what Leviticus talks about, we don't know of any example of that. And so what is this king saying? This is a joke. What am I, God? He's punished for sin. Leprosy is a punishment. I can't do anything with that. What do you do? This is a trap. You're just trying to go to war with me. That's essentially the position. And so, of course, Naaman is given, the prophet comes in, and Naaman is given the things what to do. He's kind of upset about it. Like, I'm going to dip myself in the Jordan. Are you kidding me? But he does, and he's healed. And then the assistant to the prophet. This is what happens here. In 27, therefore the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and your descendants forever, because the assistant lied. The assistant took the money that Naaman was offering that was rejected. So because of this, as punishment, in verse 27, therefore the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and your descendants forever. So he went out from his presence a leper, like snow. So again, we see leprosy is there as a consequence of sin in the mind of Jewish people. And then let's look at the last one, 2 Chronicles 26. But when he was strong, he grew proud. This is Uzziah, to his destruction. For he was unfaithful to the Lord his God, and entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. And Uzziah, this is skipping now to 19, then Uzziah was angry. Now he had a censer in his hand to burn incense. And when he became angry with the priest, leprosy broke out on his forehead in the presence of the priests in the house of the Lord by the altar of incense. And Azariah the chief priest and all the priests looked at him, and behold, he was leprous on his forehead. And they rushed him out quickly, and he himself hurried to go out, because the Lord had struck him. So he was prideful, and he was prospering. That's the dangerous time. That's when God says, beware when you prosper. So Uzziah was a great and godly king until he prospered. And then pride came in, and then the result of that pride is the Lord struck him with this leprosy. And King Uzziah was a leper to the day of his death, and being a leper, lived in a separate house, for he was excluded from the house of the Lord. And so we're getting this Old Testament picture now, which is going to be very much in the minds of people in the New Testament of what leprosy is. Leprosy is symbolic of sin. We all have to understand the consequence of our sin. It starts so small, and then it grows and it grows, and it destroys us completely. And most importantly, isn't the destruction, it's the separation. It's the separation from God. And so that's the picture. And then we see its actual physical punishment for real sin in the Old Testament. You do a real sin, and now you're physically punished with leprosy. And so if anyone is a leper, there's it's a physical manifestation of what they did spiritually. They did a sin, and somehow, even if it seems like they're good people, obviously you get leprosy as punishment. So that's the view. And we're going to see lepers quite a bit, because in what Jesus' ministry is, because he heals them. And that's not precedented. No one heals a leper. That's not what you do. You don't go to the priest and do this Leviticus instructions, because it's never happened that we know of. Never happened. But that is one of the signs, the prophecies that people were looking for from the Messiah. So leprosy is not curable. So the Messiah, he's supposed to heal all our infirmities. They're waiting for this to happen. And now let's go to Luke chapter 5, verse 12. While he was in one of the cities, there came a man full of leprosy. And so this term full of leprosy, it means it was now progressed. It's in its final stage. And there's references to what leprosy would be like and how just disgusting it would be, and the smells, how that would travel. And imagine you can be just downwind a significant amount of space and time in between, and you could be a good distance away, and the odor would hit you, of the rotting in the flesh. And it's just like, and that doesn't even have to be when it's full. So this is full progress. Has he already lost, if it's full, has he already lost fingers? And is his arm rotting away? Does he have any toes left? This is not someone who is just beginning this process. This is not someone who's devastated with the sudden loss of everything he loves. That's not the context here. This is someone who's had this for a long time and it has progressed to its final stage. That's the type of person we're talking with. We're talking to here. This is what we're talking about. Like, he's lost it all. He knows what it's like. Did he have loved ones? He had a story. And listen, the story was so impactful. We get this in multiple Gospels. So we get this perspective. It's powerful. It impacted these people who watched it, who saw the whole thing. He had this for decades, the separation. And so he's full of leprosy. And when he saw Jesus, he fell on his face and begged him, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. And so the other translations other Gospels talk about how he's worshiping here. And he's on his face, he's on his knees worshiping. And so he's begging him, Lord, you can do this. Where did he get his information from? Someone come by the leper colony. Someone find him in isolation. Someone he knew was sick. Maybe someone was healed and now they're traveling all over. Hey, lepers, guess what? The Messiah is here. There's a rabbi, his name is Jesus, and he heals people. I don't understand it, but he heals people. Somehow he got this news. Did a family member get healed? Somehow he gets this news and he's falling on his face, begging, if you will, you can make me clean. If you will, there's a separation between me and everyone else. My leprosy has caused the separation. You are the key. Now, obviously, you see the reflection here of sin. So we all have leprosy spiritually. We all have sin. We all have separation. And if Jesus was willing, he could be the one to take away that problem. He could be the one to fill the void. The separation is too large to even contemplate between us and God. He can be the one if he was willing to die on that cross and pay for our sins. And what was his answer? I will. Yes, I can. And yes, I will. And so the leper here has this faith and says, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. If you will, you can purify me. If you will, you can change my life and unite me with everything I've lost. If you will. And Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, I will be clean. That's what Jesus said. Why do we take communion? To remember that Jesus did this for us, that we had the sin problem. And Jesus said, I will. I will take care of it. I do love you like that. I do have the power and I will use it to die for you, to fix your sin problem. My goodness. So I will be clean. And immediately the leprosy left him. So at what stage? It's full. It's full on. So things had to be falling off, falling apart, the smell, the stench. And immediately, did things grow back? I think so. I think he was made whole. And the leprosy left him. And 14, and he charged him to tell no one, but to go. That's a hard thing, by the way. Can you imagine? Tell no one. And then you go back to your family. Hey, guys, how did this happen? I don't know. Fun day. Very difficult instruction here. So tell no one. Certainly at that time, and go and show yourself to the priest. So go directly to the priest and make an offering for your cleansing as Moses commanded. And this is a fun part, for a proof to them. For a proof. So he's going to go to the priest. The priests are in Jerusalem. He's going to go to Jerusalem and as a proof. And by the way, he would have already gone to Jerusalem to be declared unclean. So he went through this process and now he's going back to Jerusalem to show himself clean. I doubt the priest had ever seen someone with leprosy come back clean. Jesus is sending a message, a powerful message to the priest in Jerusalem. If he wasn't on the radar because, he's doing cool things, but it's up in Galilee, he kind of looked down on Galilee. Now he's going to go to Jerusalem, sending someone. And they're going to ask, how did this happen? They're going to figure out Jesus is doing things that no one has ever done. And so what a message to send to the priest who are now seeing something they probably have never seen, a leper who is healed as proof to them. That would have been a powerful message indeed. 15. But now, even more, the report about him went abroad, and great crowds gathered to hear him and to be healed of their infirmity. So there's two things they want to do. We talked about it last week, that the crowd was gathering all around to hear him, not to be healed. But we've seen before that, a couple weeks back, that they're gathering to be healed. And so he's covering all the bases now. People are showing up in droves for healing. You can imagine what those lines would be like. People coming from great distances to be healed. And then we also get, now they're coming to listen, because they've never heard anything like it. They know what it is to be bored in synagogue. Now, this isn't boring. This is new. This is unprecedented. This is inspired. This is divine. And so the crowds are enormous and gathering. And so he wants to heal people. He wants to teach them the truth. That's why he's here. He's going from city to city, to town to do what he's called to do. To share this message, share this truth, impact lives, because the Messiah is here. So he's doing what he's called to do. And with that success, with all these testimonies, people are going home, Jesus is healing me. Like, Jesus is teaching this word. Jesus has opened my eyes. Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus is on the tongue of everyone. It's spreading. We see, it seems like every miracle, and the word spread, and the word spread, and the word spread. And so with this success, he now follows the same pattern. So we've talked about it previously. This is going to be something that's consistent. It has to be in every one of our lives. And that's verse 16. But he would withdraw to desolate places and pray. I can't imagine the physical strain of constantly speaking, constantly teaching, constantly, like what's the energy drain when he's healing people over and over and over. And yet, what does he do? We see it's early, we see it's late, it doesn't matter. He is going to withdraw. And other people could say, but the ministry, yeah, it's going to be secondary. He's going to withdraw desolate places to do what? Spend time with God. He's praying. What is he praying for? What's that dialogue like? What are those conversations like? This is time, fellowship with what? Who he loves, his Father. And that was priceless to him. That was the most important thing to him, more than healing someone, more than speaking the truth, which are just why that's why he's there. What's the protected thing? Withdraw to a desolate place. And we see that up until, we'll see that in the garden. We'll see that at the Mount of Olives. What does he do? He spends time and prays. And all the way from the start of his ministry to the end, that's what we see. It's constant, consistent. That's what he did. And we need to emulate our Lord and Savior. Okay, so that's the story of him healing the leper. We're going to see that consistently. That's in his repertoire now. But that would have blown people away. This is unprecedented. This is the Messiah they're waiting for. And then now you understand where that can kind of take off the excitement. They're just waiting. Now they've seen it. This is the proof. This is the evidence. And how many people at this time are going to different lepers that they know are lepers? They've been this way for decades, and they are healed. And it's going to have an impact. So, okay. Well, that wraps up this section of Luke chapter 5. We're going to continue in Luke chapter 5 next week.